you cheated on me.
What's up, TNJ fam? We are back with part 3 to this series. Hopefully you guys have watched 1 and 2. You loved it. Drop some thoughtful comments. So remember, watch this all the way through. Don't skip so that you can be sure that you really understand the full picture. So this episode, we're going to talk about, are same-sex relationships harder than heterosexual relationships? And so we've broken it up into 3 different categories, we feel like, on why same-sex relationships are harder. And so that's friends, dominant personalities, and it's also outside influences like family, friends, social media, things like that. We'll start with talking about friends.
Just to answer the question in itself, do I think same-sex relationships are harder than heterosexual relationships? Yes. When you look at a straight couple having separate friends, you tend to see, oh, well, I'm going with my girls, like we're going shopping, we're going to get our hair done and all kind of stuff like that. And when you look at it from the male perspective, well, I don't want to do that, and I don't have to feel any type of insecurity about you going and hanging out with girls and going to do girl things. They're not going out with a straight male who is someone that is attracted to them as a female. So I feel like when you look at it from a gay side, I think that when you send your spouse to go out and hang out with friends, for instance, if you go and hang out with, your friends and they're all gay males, obviously they like men and they're gay. So it's just like you have that level of anxiety, I guess you could say. The other part of it is that we tend to all have the same interests. You kind of feel, I felt left out sometimes when, not wanting to go and do something because I was tired, but then y'all going and doing, I'm like, dang, well, like I kind of want to go because I want to have fun too.
Definitely, if it poses a different viewpoint, it's always that thought in the back of your head is like, is he looking at my man like this or whatever? Is this just like really a friendship? And I think that it all goes back to how trusting you are, but it's also at its core, it's just insecurity, or it's a problem that heterosexual relationships don't have to deal with in general. Specifically for us, I think that it posed an issue just because Jarius and I have mutual friends, so we're all a friend group. But I do think that sometimes you would be tired and you wouldn't want to do things. I think that those thoughts arise when that person is not included, because if you're there, you wouldn't have an issue with it. Oftentimes, I would feel pressure not to go if you didn't go because of that also.
It's all about just like give and take, and it's just really like trust is at the center, and it's very unfortunate. I'm gonna call out our community. I do think that sometimes I have a negative image of a lot of outside influences of other people in our community because we can be over-sexualized sometimes. Like we can really not care about marriage and the institution of a relationship and stuff like that. And I do think that there are a lot of people out there who will look at you and be like, oh, you have a ring on? I don't care. Like, I just want to have like a one-night stand. I've always been super protective of keeping you from those things. And in doing so, I didn't realize that it was making you feel like you couldn't go out and control what happens around you. Because like, for instance, you remember we were at like a nightclub in New Orleans one time and somebody came up and they tried to talk to you. And I almost like went off and I didn't even give him a chance to even respond to it. It's just like I didn't allow you the chance to even show me that, he has respect for our relationship. So when the thought of you going out came about, I was just like, what happened? I'm not there, something happens. And it's just like, well, I don't have to be there. As scary as it is, you just have to allow your partner to be able to go out and have the freedom to go out and make mistakes, because people do. But it is a very scary thing to be able to just give up control. And I think especially with me cheating and like being a scandalous mess in our first year, it kind of made me really realize that I don't want to ever feel like that. I couldn't imagine like how that would feel to find out that like you cheated on me. That thought and that fear of feeling that made me always be super protective of you.
In short, I feel like I suffered more for your mistakes than you did.
Yeah.
Which I don't feel like is right. I feel as though it's just a reality shock, and I think it's growth, and it's fair to never want to feel that way.
It's tough. you know, the dominance part is also like a big one too. So let's jump into that.
When I say the word dominance, I feel like it's very male driven. It's an issue that we see time and time again in a same-sex male relationship because we're both men. We had a power struggle. I think that I went from being very submissive because it was my first full-out relationship with a guy. It was very new to me. I was still learning and navigating, and so I felt as though I was very submissive in the beginning, and Jarius is very dominant. And through the years, that's changed. I think that I've become more dominant. I felt as though I had to find a place to match you in our relationship, and I think that that is a problem that same-sex relationships struggle with.
Usually in straight relationships, there are defined roles of like a wife is supposed to play a certain part, and
not that we agree with that.
That tends to be the way the constraints fall. But in our situation, we're both trying to figure out the perfect balance of push and pull. And I think we talked about that in one of our Marriage Secrets videos.
Pretty much just take everything that you were raised to know, even from when Jarius made the video about changing his last name. That was a struggle because when you're younger, you grow up and you just think like, my wife, my kids, like everybody's gonna have my last name. And so you have to think about things like that when you're in a relationship where we don't have defined roles.
People looked at me like, oh, you gave up your last name. Are you like more of the wife in the situation? And it's just like, well, no, I'm not like the wife. Like, I'm a man. In the beginning, when I was the more dominant person in the relationship, I think I took that for granted. I walked over you with asserting my dominance. That's okay for you to be submissive. I should be able to know how to handle me taking charge, and I didn't at that time. That caused the shift in him to, obviously he wanted to be with me, but he also had to, you know, like appease his inner self to say like, okay, well, you know that that's not right. You know that he's not supposed to do that. But like, I really do hate like outside views coming in and like clouding up the situation to make it seem like, you know, you have to be some, you know, you have to be one way and I have to be one way.
Well, I feel like it's not just so much of views today, but I think it's just how you were raised and just like the mentality that you're brought up thinking. So you're brought up thinking one way that, you know, a man is supposed to marry a woman, she's supposed to take your last name, which again, a lot of women are against that now. Like they are keeping their last names. As you grow up and you continue and you paint a picture in your head, I think that you grow up with this picture in mind of how your life is gonna be, how your marriage is gonna be, how your family is gonna be. And I think whenever Jarius and I got together, because it wasn't something that I had foresaw, when things start to get serious, so when we start talking about kids, when we start talking about getting married and last names, it was a push and pull because it was, I'm not changing my last name. And I think that that just goes to show that some people would not be able to get over that hurdle. I think that it sucks that you're raised to think a certain way and it can carry over in a same-sex marriage. I think that it's very difficult. We're out as public figures, social media, YouTube, everything, commercials, all kind of stuff. And because I don't want to be treated differently, if I'm on the phone, I'll say my spouse to whoever I'm speaking with if they're asking some information. While society has progressed in certain ways with being accepting, there's still a lot of people that do not. And so I'm always cautious about like what I say. And I think that that can affect things. And I think that you felt some type of way about that before. Like I wouldn't proudly just be like my husband. I'll just be like my spouse, or like, you know, oh, it's my spouse's name.
And I think it sucks sometimes that like, even with outside views, that it causes a lot of like strain on gay relationships that heterosexual couples don't have to worry about. Because when we were on dates and stuff like that, I'd be like, hold my hand, like walking out of the movies or walking into the movies, and like you would feel some type of way because, you know, the potential danger of like, you know, somebody like jumping us.
I felt, again, this is so hard being so like raw with you guys because I'm just opening myself up for opinions, but these are my views. I felt as though Jarius tried to like open the door for me once, like the car door, and it made me feel so feminine. And I was just like, you don't have to do that. It sucks that you're in your head, you think like that's what men do for women instead of it's just like a romantic type of thing. And so that just goes to show just like how you think about things, what you see really can influence how you feel about certain things that are just like, that are just like completely innocent, but can make you like, I'm not the feminine one.
In my mind, I do think that gay relationships do tend to be a little bit more harder than straight relationships because there's a lot more factors that you have to consider, as simple as just holding hands with your spouse. If we do something in public, how is someone's child going to perceive it? Maybe the parent wants to wait to have that conversation. And I do think that parents should have the right to decide that, but at the same time, why should I have to like hide my love from them?
I think that it's on both sides, because we've also had the conversation where I don't necessarily want Ashton and Arya to see a heterosexual couple tonguing each other down. I feel like I want to wait to have a conversation with my child about that also. I think it's difficult because I feel as though it's accepting, and it would be, as Jaria said, oh, two guys are kissing. That's so disrespectful. I want to wait to have a conversation with my child to explain to them about same-sex relationships. But if you saw a man and a woman kissing, it would be like, oh, I'll need to wait to explain that to my child. But for us, it is. And so I just think that those pressures from society, I think that the thoughts of who's dominant in things, from how you were raised inside your marriage, and then also friendships are factors of why, you know, it's more difficult, and why statistics show that most relationships do not last that long. That wraps up part 3. Make sure you guys drop your thoughts. You know, we love reading your comments. We love, you know, opening the doors. Again, super scary for us, but open to some feedback, constructive feedback, and make sure you guys stay tuned for our next series, which is going to be taking you guys back to when Jaris and I first started dating, and kind of expounding upon
some of the things that contributed to
who we are today.
Yeah, like what kind of happened and how that influenced us today. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and until next video, bye.